All right, here we go. So, good evening. On behalf of the URI Foundation and the Alumni of Color Network, I'd like to welcome you to tonight's event, Three Pathways to Ownership, with URI's alum Ben Concepcion, class of 2017. My name is Michelle Font, and I am a proud member of the URI class of 96 and 2011. And I currently serve as the Assistant Vice President for Community Equity and Diversity here at the University of Rhode Island, and I'm a proud member and founder of the Alumni of Color Network. I'm truly honored to be part of the Alumni of Color Network's first virtual education workshop to serve as your moderator this evening. Yay, yay, yay. This webinar is a fitting way to launch our educational workshop series as it reflects the very mission of ACN, which is fostering connection, building community, strengthening the URI experience, and creating meaningful educational opportunities. Thank you all out there for joining us and contributing to this important conversation. As we begin, I'd like to take a moment to share the University of Rhode Island's land acknowledgement statement. The University of Rhode Island occupies the traditional stomping grounds of the Narragansett Nation and the Niantic people. We honor and respect the enduring and continuing relationship between the indigenous people and this land by teaching and learning more about their history and present-day communities, and by becoming stewards of the land we too inhabit. I would also like to take a minute to highlight URI's Alumni of Color Network. This network, we call it ACN, is a volunteer-based leadership organization dedicated to providing personal and professional development, networking, advocacy, and community building opportunities. The ACN also builds partnerships and mentor opportunities for current students at URI, and we have added a link to the ACN new member interest form to the chat for those who are interested in learning more. We also will add the link to learn about the URI's foundation's other alumni councils, the Women's Leadership Council and the Young Alumni Council. So tonight's program will be structured with a 35-minute presentation led by Ben, followed by a Q&A session. While you're listening to the program, feel free to submit questions into the QA feature. We'll spend some time at the end of the session answering those. Please note that all the questions may not be answered today due to time. So now I am pleased to introduce you to my close friend, a fellow alum, and tonight's presenter, Ben Concepcion, class of 2017. Ben has been a member and strong supporter of the Alumni of Color Network for years. His experience and dedication to ACN's mission made him an excellent choice to guide our conversation this evening. Ben is a proud TD alum and first-generation Dominican-American dedicated to financial empowerment. His mission is a simple one but powerful: build wealth, and he teaches it every chance he gets, and he's super passionate about it. Grounded in his own journey, Ben has helped his parents eliminate $25,000 in debt, purchased his own multifamily investment property through disciplined savings, and even used real estate to retire his widowed mother early. Today, he coaches others on personal money management and leads practical, relatable workshops that meet people where they are. Known for his approachable style and actionable insights, Ben is currently completing his MBA at URI while pursuing his financial counselor certification. Yes, Ben. Lastly, before we begin, I do want to note that the ideas, opinions, and advice shared during this presentation are those of the guest speaker and do not necessarily represent those of the University of Rhode Island. So really, Ben, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate you taking the time and learn us, just learn us. I'll now turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate the introduction. Let me share my screen so we start kicking things off. A quick shout out to Patrick and Michelle for organizing this, for inviting me. Man, Michelle and I go way back. Back when I was an undergrad, this woman is a connector, the first of her kind that I met. I think when it comes to URI, I had such a great time. But it's people like Michelle that really made my time there feel home. Right, and feel empowered. But anyway, let me pop this up real quick. Cool. So let's talk about the three pathways to ownership. I think ownership is something that's super important, and it's not the most popular conversation in certain circles, but it's powerful. Those who are talking about it know it's powerful. When we look at artists like Nipsey Hussle, they push about these things all the time. There's a lot of the Kendrick Lamars, right? There's a lot of these artists that now in our culture that share these perspectives. But on mine, I want to make sure that also in a realm that we can talk about it as people, right? We're not superstars. We're not in these high places. Let's talk about ownership, what that looks like for us. So at least this conversation is kind of get us started there. A little bit about me. Money Sense, Money Made Simple. This is really about financial empowerment because when we go to financial literacy, financial empowerment, now it leads to ownership. And so I know we're going to talk about kind of the end piece of that, but this is really something that I like to hone in and really expose a lot of people to. All right, let me go over to now. Let's kick things off. I want to hear from y'all in the chat. When you think of ownership, what comes to mind? There's no right or wrong answers. We're just having a conversation today. So I want to see what y'all think. Okay, I see people saying freedom. I know there might be people driving. Okay. I see some residual income assets. Okay, we're cooking with gas. I love it. Okay. Anything else? When we think about ownership, what comes to mind? What comes to mind? Okay, retire early. Yep. So there's a whole fire movement. Equity, legacy. Love it. Yep. Yep. Passive income, equity, legacy, bills. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Oh my God, yes.
And that's real.
That's super real, super real. Oh my goodness, that's hilarious. Yeah, cool. Anybody else? Any other thoughts? When ownership comes to mind, what else? I see here a lot of it is very on the financial focus, right? The legacy, the financial focus. Um, we'll dive deep into a lot more things. Like I said, there's no right or wrong answer to this. I always like to start things off. Okay, I see one more thing pop in. A sense of pride, love it, right? It's yours, right? And so I would like to start things off and start conversations off with a question because it levels the playing field, right? I love to be interrupted, so please, if you have questions, jump in. Like this is the point. I want this to feel like a roundtable conversation. And so always feel comfortable. Okay, this doesn't make sense. Let me ask. Let me find out. Have the courage to do so, so we can really dive into these topics. Really leave with something practical and with powerful understanding. Because each of us are going to look at ownership and look at this conversation that we're having in a different angle. Be selfish. This is your time. This is our time, right? So please ask questions. We're here for it. Cool. So when it comes to ownership, comes to mind, all those things exactly are correct. I want to go into kind of the qualities of ownership. Because when we're looking at, and I know someone mentioned pride, legacy, all these things, exactly, right? When passive income. But when we're looking at owners versus non-owners, right? With owners, problems end with them, right? So now when you own something, when it's yours, when things hit the fan, you've got to figure out how to handle it, right? So everybody wants passive income, everybody wants freedom, everybody wants legacy, but it takes work, right? When we talk about generational work, this is work, right? So when it comes to ownership, it's also looking at, okay, how can I really use my skills and really enhance and really put my higher influence on things? Because now when you own something, you're the head honcho, you're the person that's, okay, I'm going to make the decisions about this, and that, or I'm going to have the most influence on moving this, and that. And now when we're in that space, now we also have increased capacity, right? Because now we're not just doing one role, we're not just doing one thing, we're looking at things holistically, right? As an owner, to get that sense of pride, that sense of feeling like, hey, this is mine, this represents me. That's also part of that also, where you're looking at everything. Okay, this is happening here, this is happening here. I don't like this over here, right? Kind of look at it in that holistic view. And now these two things, when there's 100% accountability and 100% responsibility, I think stepping into ownership land, that's kind of the hard pill to swallow, right? Where it's like, hey, this is a representation of us, and this is the things that we are bringing into the table, right? So the outcomes are yours. When you step into ownership land, the outcomes are yours. The excuses of those things slide right off. Like either it happened or it's not happening. Period. Right. And so these are things that we can see when we start talking with owners, when we start seeing the difference between owners and non-owners, right? Because when you don't own something, you're not really 100% responsible. If something happens, it's happened. No, I gotta either pass it up to someone else higher, or I can just go about my day at 5 o'clock is over. Right. When it's ownership, it's okay. Well, now let me think about this. How can I figure this out? Right. Oh, this outcome, I did this outcome didn't happen. Okay, but why didn't that happen? What's the lesson there? What can I learn? Right. Now pivot, changing, constantly growing and learning, that's ownership land. Right. To really bring solutions and bring this freedom, this legacy work, these things that are really powerful. Because when we look at transformations, it's about doing things differently. It's not about doing the status quo. It's about doing, okay, well, this has always happened here. Let's switch it. Let's change it over here. All right. I like to pause. Thoughts, questions, concerns about ownership, non-owners, kind of looking at it from this perspective. Any thoughts, questions? I would like to pause because this is your time. I'm here for y'all. Okay. Cool.
So Ben, just so you know, I posted scary. Like
Yeah.
hearing all that is wonderful, but scary, right? All at the same time.
Exactly, right? So the responsibility part is stressing me out, but well worth it, right? Yeah. So when it comes to, and that's the thing, it's worth it, right? So when we look at the fear, uh everything is scary, right? Deciding to go to college as first generation, that's scary. Like it's literally you go somewhere that no one in your environment, your neighborhood knows what you're even doing, right? And you're like, you know what? I believe in it. I'm gonna go run for this, right? That's why I applaud first gen identities because, like, man, you're really swimming. You're going to the ocean. You're getting dropped in, and you're swimming. You're figuring it out. So if you have that figure out ability from any capacity, from your identity, from the things you've done, that's all. That shows that you have the trait of ownership. It's just digging in and saying like, hey, I'm gonna stand on my 2 feet and say this is what I do. This is who I am. This is what I can bring to the table, and now it's to the service of others. Because when we look at the financial gain, ultimately you're serving other people. Okay. Any more thoughts, questions, concerns? I love it. I love it. Renters, no, to not. Yeah, perspective of renters, non-owners is a privilege to not have to deal with the problems. Yeah. We'll tap into that a little later. I love it. I already see, yeah, I see people cooking. I love it. I see it. All right, let me pop into it. Exactly. So the problems end with the owners, right? Because if you're responsible, if you're handling business, you have longevity, you're handling things. You're not just letting things slide. Absolutely not. Okay. Love it. Okay. So now this is kind of the potential agenda, a bit about my story, and then we'll dive into the 3 paths towards ownership, really dissecting that model, so y'all can leave with that after this conversation. And I really want to ask y'all kind of what path will you start with if you haven't started with any. There's also a space for us to discuss how we can connect with each other, and then we'll have an end to Q&A. Cool. So I'm a little bit of an introvert. I gotta like consume slides. I can't read super quick. So I'm gonna give it like 2 seconds so y'all can really see these phases real quick. Um, and then I'll jump right in. All right. So when we go into the Concepcion story, um, financial empowerment is a multiplier. We hear compound interest, we hear like all these fancy, sexy words. But this stuff everything starts small, every single thing. No one's born a doctor, no one's born an owner, no one's born like we figure these things out as we go. Um, to bring y'all back and to a story, I get goosebumps every time I'm gonna talk about this. But I remember I was in my room and I'm a gamer, so I play my video games, chilling, da da da. And I've been working since I was like 15 years old. So I've always had a job. I've always had like a few bucks here and there. My dad came and knocked on the door. Mind you, my dad, like, come on, you can just bust through the door. This guy like owns everything, right? Cool. So he comes and he knocks a certain way. I never heard, like almost like very lightly. He goes up to me. He's like, "Oh, Poppy, do you? I'm short like 300 bucks. Do you have 300 bucks I could borrow?" My dad asking me to borrow money. I ain't getting that back ever, right? But it was a moment where financially there was an emergency that he couldn't handle. There wasn't enough, right? And so he couldn't turn to anybody. So he goes to his youngest kid, who he knows is responsible, has savings, always working, right? Like always kind of on the grind. Um, he was, and I was able to support him with that, right? And I took pride in that. Um, Now after that, I realized, damn, like of course, no judgment. There was never any fear or anything to be upset about. It was out of love. But then that got my mind working, and I started to ask those questions, right? Like why are we struggling financially, right? Like, everybody's broke. Like what's really happening, you know? And what don't we know? Right? Because now if things happen in our life and we don't ask questions, it stays that way. Right? Like we can create our own reality sometime. And if it's just like, oh, it is what it is, then nothing changes. Right. And so I'm like, no, this problem is gonna stop right here. Right. Like this can happen, but let's not make it a pattern, right? Let's figure out what's really happening. So after certain questions, of course I was in college at the time. And thanks to being at a university, going through these programs, to have those opportunity now to learn how to learn, um, that let me dive into learning, reading about books, meeting people, to kind of find the sources of the answer to these questions. Man, I'm like, absolutely not. This cannot just be it. And so now, after reading some things, after talking with some people, now it's about practicing what I was learning and really executing. I remember I got my first role after I graduated, and the first thing I was like, no, wait, hold on. I see the Achilles heel. My parents don't really have a budget. I don't know how they've been managing or doing things. They've just been doing it as they could. And now, okay, no, let's handle this debt and let's clear this out, because that's going to let us now have some breathing room financially, where the knock on the door won't be as common, right? And so in that process, if any of you are going through the debt resolution process, I highly recommend write this down, look up the debt snowball. That's going to be the easiest, fastest way to get rid of debt. Um, you start from your lowest debts to your highest, and move forward that way. But we could talk more about that, probably in the Q&A or whatever you want. Once I saw that I could apply this information that I didn't know a damn thing about and gets me actual results in real life, it was game over. I was like, okay, say less, right? And so now it's just moving forward and trying to consume as much information as I could. Um, and that now led to learning the multifamily real estate game, right? Like that's a whole hustle, that's a whole world. I'm like, okay, hold on, pause. So I could just buy something and I'm the owner, and now I can provide housing and safety and make income from it. And the hardest part of this is like knowing the right people to fix things when things break down, and being kind and having conversations and figuring things out with people. Been doing that since the jump, not a problem. So now from that process, one property, understanding systems, understanding processes, meeting the right people, that led to now managing property like a smooth machine. And people think of passive income, but at first it's not passive at all, right? There's things happening, there's things breaking, you got to fix, there's things that you got to stand up for and you got to handle. But once you get through those first hump, every single investment at first is going to be the most expensive, but then with time, it leads to simplicity, because you just get better at the craft, right? Like, oh man, how do I even write my first lease? What the heck should I even put there, right? Like these questions, as you step into things, you start learning, and then you develop those things. Through that process now, my father passed away last year, actually. Every single thing I learned about financial empowerment, financial literacy, all came into like a cooker in one moment, to come up with this plan. And once again, like ownership doesn't discriminate, right? So I remember my older brother, who's a Army veteran, Ranger, complete. He's a beast, right? My sister, who's in sales, makes a ton of money, and then myself, the youngest, right? And so we're kind of figuring out what we're gonna do with the family dynamic now. Um, but of course, they were like, "Oh, let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of." I'm like, "No, pause. We can let me. I played with these investments in real estate. Let's do this, and now my mom can be okay, right? And the income from those things can now pay for her lifestyle for her to be okay. Because in 6 months after his death, the employer doesn't care, nobody cares. It just needs to get handled, right? And so, and thankfully, we're fortunate to do that at the time. But these are things that are built from a long time to then lead to these moments that are like, what is happening? And even before this conversation, even before we popped into the webinar, as I'm chopping it up with Michelle and Patrick, I'm like, right now, I I say things, and I'm like, is this even real life? Just because of like the the leaps from day one to here. right? And it's never here to say, oh, I'm richer than it. Absolutely not. That's never the conversation. Humbly serving and growing and trying to bring people with me, right? Because the last thing you want to do is be wealthy and be by yourself. Oh my God. Champagne is not good if you drink it by yourself, right? Boats are not fun if you're by yourself, right? Traveling by yourself, good luck. It's you always want to be with people. You want to be with your community and bring them with you. Thoughts, questions, concerns, a bit of my story, my family story. If you got any, that's okay. If you don't, I'll keep moving. We'll step into the next piece. Let me just double check. Let me look at the time. I do not see. Am I on time, Michelle? Am I doing okay? All right, cool. All right. So now this is where we're cooking with gas. Right. So now this is where I really want to dig my heels in. So three paths towards ownership. Um, this is kind of like a frame to look at things. Um, People talk about all these things, especially online. Oh my God, there's so much information. Everybody's a financial guru. It's really challenging to kind of cut through the BS and get to like, okay, what's really important. Um, this is to keep you focused as you start maneuvering different paths towards ownership. And once you know this, it's really hard to not know because you'll start seeing it, right? And that's why I love these conversations because it if you've never seen the color yellow and I finally tell you, hey, this is what yellow looks like, you'll be like, oh, that's yellow. You'll start seeing it. So as we jump, and please, as I mentioned, ask questions, whatever that's what we're here for, to really jump in and dig deep into these things. So now, when it looks at, okay, the money you're making, whatever income source you have, jobs, salary, gigs, contracts, whatever, when we look at money itself, what is money, right? It's a tool of trade. Ultimately, if we go back to the history of money, we're looking at the barter system. People are like, okay, you got fur, I got rice, I want that, you want this, okay, let's trade, right? And so then you kind of do it so many times that now, okay, well, we can't walk around with gold, we can't walk around with all those materials. I just gotta trust that you'll give me what I ask for, right? And so that's where the exchange goes into, right? And so if money is a tool to exchange things, the that's the understanding of money. But now the job of money is to make more money. That thing is to work and keep baking and keep making more and keep making more trades. The way I look at it is almost like a dollar is like a fish you're trying to hold. That thing is trying to get out. That thing is trying to move. That's why it's so challenging. One thing is to build wealth. Another thing is to maintain wealth. Right? Those are two different sports. But anyway, whatever income source we have, now we can deploy it into these three frames. When we're looking at, and I'll start jumping into them one on one. Thoughts, questions, concerns about like the history, the understanding of money, and the purpose of it. Before I jump into a million things here. Okay, I love it. I love it. It looks like people are consuming some stuff already. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate for the hype and the love. Thank you. All right. So now we're looking at business. Um, you can build businesses, which is where we hear a lot of the conversation in communities of color. Start a business, just start something, a startup. Not knocking that hustle at all. But starting a business is like a baby. You got to feed that thing, and what it consumes that of milk is money and time, right? So if you're building a business, great, that's not a problem. You can also buy a business, and I'm gonna hit y'all with some heavy stuff there too. But you can build a business, you could buy a business. Um, you could also become a career athlete, right? Like we see people who, and I think there's the people try to knock the corporate ladders and all these things, but if you're really good at what you do, become the best at what you do. Period, point blank, right? And never look to the sides. Do what you do because no one else can be you, right? So if you're a career athlete, now you're focusing on your skills and trying to be the best of the best at those skills. And that's a piece of ownership as well. Because not only people only think it's assets and all these other things, but if you are the asset, if you are the business of one, that's again, these are different paths. Not saying that one is right or wrong. Is what works for anybody. And we can triple dip. You could dip into all these things. It's not just one of them. I haven't seen it broken down in this simplistic form. But you can dip and choose as you move. But becoming a career athlete, that's one avenue, and you're a business of one. You're representing yourself, you're branding yourself, you're being very effective, you have outcomes over credentials, right? Like it's a whole different ballgame. As I mentioned, buying or building, you can build businesses. You can also buy businesses. You can transition your skills. You can be a career athlete, be really good at one thing, and you could buy the skills or the businesses doing these other things. Or within your own career athlete house, if you're really good at one thing, you can buy learning and development organizations. You can buy consulting agencies. You can buy landscaping companies. You can now look at things. Everything has a dollar price to it. Okay. And as I mentioned, you can build businesses. You can start things from scratch. Just I'd always recommend transitioning slowly into that. I know people are like, I want to jump the gun. If I have more time, trust me, during 9 to 5, you'll build the same as if you were doing it on your own. And you won't, and you'll avoid a lot of the risk there. So that's in terms of business. Thoughts, questions, concerns, anything in the chat about that avenue? Okay. Cool. So now we can step into real estate. So real estate, we can look at residential, which is like the multifamilies, the mom and pops, the single family homes that can be rented out. And then there's the commercial real estate, and that's the big pants. That's the malls, the giant buildings that are rented to multiple shops. There's like this commercial real estate now is you're buying not just a multifamily property, you're buying a hotel now. You're buying 15 units at once or 20 units. Now it's more money, a lot bigger, right? But now when it comes to I know one thing when it comes to real estate that I always hear is like, oh, if a one family is a luxury, right? And when it comes to now multi, it generates you income. Because now you're renting out to other people. Unless you're figuring out, okay, do I rent by the room for my one family? That's the beauty of real estate, that you can flip it and mold it into so many different perspectives. You could rent parking space if you have extra parking space. Like there's just so many different spaces that you can go into. But real estate, we look at the residential and the commercial, the two high level dividers. You're either buying and holding long term, you're fixing and flipping things. Yeah, there's a ton of ways to go about it. There's fancy terms out there like equity, but basically it's like you bought X amount of years ago. Now you have all this thing is worth so much money now, 5-10 years from now, that you can do basically whatever you want with it. You could buy it, you could sell it, you could get something else. We can talk in circles about all these options. And that's kind of where I feel I'm much more confident in the real estate realm. But we can dive into like a ton of ways. Again, it's like you buy one thing, but now it can be seen in so many different, you can pull it and stretch into so many ways. And that's the power of ownership, because now you can see the landscape and decide, okay, well, I want to focus on this, or I want to focus on that. There's some people who focus on, I just want to make as much money as possible. Cool, right? But you might be creating a lot of transactions, right? And then there's people who are like, I just want to be at peace. Just leave me alone. Let me chill and handle my bills, right? Like that's also a strategy, right? So everybody kind of has a move that works for them. And not everything is better. And I mean, what is it? More is not always better. But like you figure out what ownership looks like for you, right? Because then you can get into this hamster wheel, just like more and more and greed. And then you're like, what are we really doing here? Right. And it's figuring out what works best for you. Thoughts, questions, concerns about that kind of the real estate side of things? Yeah, so somebody just mentioned that they rent out their garage to someone with luxury vehicles. Exactly, right. So there's so many ways to move around. Because the funny thing is about like luxury cars, they need luxury maintenance, they need luxury storage. Like luxury things cost a lot more than regular things holistically. Love it, right? What are your thoughts with the current housing market? I know that's one of the Q&As we'll have at the end. Yeah, oh man, I love it. But I love the questions. Keep them coming. I love it. Okay. So now we talked about business, we talked about real estate. So now let's talk about the markets, right? So this is where like retirement and trading accounts live, right? The 401k plans, the health savings accounts, the Roth IRAs. There's like so many, these things got so many damn names. But ultimately is different vehicles, right? Of doing similar things. And it's once again, it's about making your money make more money, right? And now, I remember the first time I bought my first stock, I was like, "Whoa, man!" I was so excited, and I'm like, "Man, this thing ain't doing a damn thing." I'm looking at it every day. I'm like, "You're supposed to make me money, man." But this is it. All depends. It all moves. But now you're now part owner of Apple. You're now part owner of whatever, and you could buy index funds, ETFs. There's like a whole language, a whole world in the markets, which honestly, just talking about it is pretty damn boring. But when you start kind of playing with it, there's apps, Fidelity, there's Charles Schwab, there's like all these Robinhood, there's all these apps. I know we hear online and the media, all the sexy stuff. It's like, oh my God, yeah, I did this huge 10,000. Like, come on. There's all these things out there, but wealth is built slow and with time. You never want you can have a meal in a microwave, or you can have something cooked that tastes real good when you take your time making that meat tender, right? So looking at the markets, also looking at kind of this long term view. Like, okay, well, if I buy this here now, will this work 5 or 10 years from now? Will it make me money then? And it's never about. I know someone, John Hope. He's big on. He calls this whole movement silver rights, but basically is looking at the markets. Like, you don't want to put your rent money in Bitcoin. You don't want to put your rent money into the markets. It's something that is long term. If you're trying to get rich quick, that's day trading and good luck, right? But if you're trying to build wealth, it's something that you can build slowly. And not to knock the hustle. If day trading works for people, great. That's on them, and that works. But lasting ownership shouldn't be stressful long term. If it does stress you out, there's that sense of like, damn, responsibility and accountability, like, oh, this is on me. But that's for a limited time. It's not a sprint there. Okay. Um, and the cool thing with all these things of ownership, whether it's business, real estate, markets, um, they all build equity. They all build a form of the dollars you make now, great, but also what you can borrow is a whole other game because now it's the projected earnings. And that we could talk about that stuff as well. But when people talk about like what is an asset, ask yourself, can you borrow from it? That can be a rule of thumb to understand what's an asset or what's not an asset. Okay. I talked about all these things. When you look at this ownership model or these paths, you look at these dollars here, you're pushing them towards business, you're pushing them towards real estate acquisition, you're pushing them towards the market. In terms of markets, big movements that you hear is you can look up the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early. That's where people hone in and focus on putting a ton of dollars here, where now their assets, I think after like you hit 100K in investments, it like transforms. And so now your assets can start paying you passively, right? Because assuming these big companies keep making more money, right? So that's the FIRE movement. That's a big movement in terms of the markets and kind of honing on things there. The real estate market, you can look at if you're trying to buy, flip, there's a BRRRR method, buy, rinse, rehab, repeat. That's what people go and they buy, you know, homes in the hood and they fix them up. And they either live in it, they flip it, they sell it, they rent. There's a ton of ways you can go about it. And not only in the hood, but in any place. That's an avenue as well. Um, and in the business world, I think that's buying a business is not common conversation. But in terms of becoming a career athlete, just self-development, self-investment, like this is the cheapest and most expensive conversation you're gonna have this week, I promise you, or this month. Because now this frame, once you see the flow, right, the dollars you make, you're focusing on business, real estate markets, you're trying to put it into these spaces, it's gonna transform your life. Period, point blank. It's not gonna happen tomorrow, but you'll start seeing yellow finally. Um, and something that gets me sad is that I see it in our communities where, okay, people go and travel to get their bodies done, but I don't have the down payment for a home. Okay, and not to shame anybody because that's none of my business. But now if we're talking about building legacy and doing generational work, like this is the game. right? Kind of at a high level. And ultimately, and please, if anybody got questions, let me know. Hit me if anything. Um, all this stuff can be overwhelming at first, but as I mentioned, we can dip and dive into all of it slowly. Like this is not a one time we're gonna have this conversation and it's over. We can pick one of these to kind of scratch at and pull a little more. That's all it is. We pull a little more. We pull a little more, and then you're like, oh, I get it now. Oh, I get this now. Oh, I get this now. And that's all it is. Um, and now it all comes down to people. None of these things work without others. Whoever thinks that they're gonna get rich alone, like good luck or wealthy alone, like this, you build it with others. Um, to be able to find real estate, you need to talk to other people. You need a lender. You need a real estate agent to buy business. You need to be approved. You need to build business. You got to be able to put it in the market, right? Like there's just so many different things. Um, and with others and for others is how all this stuff works. There's no business. There's no you and me. If you and I don't say yes, I want what you have and you want what I have. What are we really doing, right? Um, thoughts, questions, concerns about kind of this focus point of looking at ownership. So I know I got a question in terms of, did I work with an agency? Give me a little more in terms of what thing. And I believe this is recorded, so I know people will be able to get this and review it. Awesome. So like in terms of fixing credit, if there's an agency, no. I didn't work with an agency personally. I know some people do. There are plenty of credit repair people out there. There's also, if you want something free, look up, oh my God, the Hope Project. Find John Hope. He's a big, like I said, civil rights, Operation Hope, I believe it's called. I'll look it up and put it in the chat later. But that is free services for people. That's all about building your credit and getting you there. Quick kind of thing that you can look into is that credit. There's two main things that impact your credit: paying your bills on time, and oh my God, now it's slipping. And how much you're using of your credit, right? So if you got $1,000, you only want to use max 30%. Some quick things that can be done. You can ask for your credit lenders to increase your credit line. That can also help. I do that once a year, almost like a birthday thing. I don't care if they reject me. That's not a big deal. I'm just gonna ask, hey, can y'all give me more? I don't plan on using it, but this is gonna help my points or whatever. That's something that you can do. Um, or open up, if I don't know how many credit cards. This is why this stuff gets very personal. That's why personal finance is very personal. If you don't have a lot of credit cards, maybe you can open up another one and that'll increase your credit line and make you seem like a less risky investor, right? Or someone they can invest that's less risky on. There's different ways. And as I mentioned, debt resolution is gonna like skyrocket your points, your credit cards. So the debt snowball, I recommend looking into things like that because that's gonna help you. Love it. Awesome. Cool. Love these questions. Love these questions. If you want, take a picture of this. I haven't met one person who talks about ownership in this simple frame. It's just super complex. Oh my God, you hear real estate like this sexy thing that no one knows what the hell is happening. You hear invest, and like, what is that? Talk to me. What are we really walking through? Like I said, this is very general. Everything, there's more specificity to all of it, but that'll just take time walking through and talking through it. I think a lot of the financial conversations or resources some of them are very fear-based, which is what make it very complicated. This is something that we dibble and dabble with slowly and we get there. Cool. All right, let me see what else I got for you. So before we jump into the last quick activity, if you all could, if you are on your phone, if you could scan this QR code. If not, I'll put the link right in the chat. Okay, I'm gonna put it in the chat. Hopefully, Patrick, you can share this with everybody. Should be a link in the chat like that. Y'all can be completely honest. Give me feedback. I love to have these conversations. With this how if you how I get booked to other places and have these conversations to really empower us to move forward with things. And there's levels to all this stuff. There is levels to all this stuff. Um, love it, love it. Someone already put a resource. Um, they negotiated to reduce their credit card interest on their behalf. Oh my God, that's powerful stuff. I love it, love it. And this is what it's about, right? It's about us having a conversation with each other. So I know I believe that that link will also be shared later. Uh, yeah, it's powerful stuff. Because I promise you, when it comes to money, we're not alone with the struggles. We are not alone, but it's scary to be out there, be like, damn, I don't know if I can do this, or I don't know if my credit is that like there can be a lot of anxiety and shame when it comes to conversation about money. And that's what stops us from building. When we look at it with curiosity, um, then it becomes power. Because now you're like, oh, okay, oh, I did that, and this works for me over here, and this I did this over here. It's impossible for one person to know everything, because you are your best financial advisor. You are living your situation. You just might need a little bit of information that you never looked at before, and that's what unlocks the power in this stuff. So in the chat, um, for those of you who have already completed the survey, let me go back to this. Oh, let me go back. From which of these ownership paths are you more comfortable either starting to look into, or are you already in? Um, I would love to hear from y'all. Either you can unmute yourself or put in the chat, whatever works. I would love to get your perspective. And if not, I think we're all good. Awesome. So some people here have a multifamily. Congrats. Um, some people interested in business and real estate. Congrats. That's awesome. I think it's overwhelming when we try to do it all at once. Um, but we get our bearings in one and feel comfortable. And then we start, as long as we start moving forward with one, then we can start pushing the other one. But we can triple dip. That's the beauty of ownership. Once you know one, you can step into the other one. Once you know one, boom, it all kind of merges. And the beauty of financial empowerment, financial literacy is that it's almost like a science. Like I'm a biologist by discipline, but I'm a leadership and business by heart. But with biology, I remember when I was learning, I was like, man, I got to understand these terms to now understand how the ecosystem works, and it all kind of starts to blend. The same thing with all these concepts; they all start to blend. So, awesome. Yeah, and interested in purchasing multifamilies. Yeah, man, this is a fun game over here, and there's always opportunity. And I think now, kind of pulling the thread. Oh, I don't know if I'll wait to Q&A, and then we'll jump into because I know there was a question about real estate. We'll jump into it. Cool. Awesome. I believe I believe that's my time. Listen, thank y'all. Thank y'all for joining. I know I'm gonna pass it over to Michelle. Um, I can't wait to look at those surveys and the feedback. I really appreciate. I'll really appreciate those things. And we're building. We don't build alone. Like we really resource from each other. I still remember the time I went to an ACN event as a new grad event, and I met two people in real estate at that time. And one of them actually, I took him to IHOP for lunch, and in a napkin, he hit me with a play, and I was like, "Whoa, crazy!" Right? And then I was like, okay, let me execute. Boom, and then things were working. Right? So we learn from each other, like nuggets, and then we implement. And the same thing as like navigating a college campus, TD Nation, like these are resource hubs to get us through a certain process. It's just ownership is not something that's super popular. Um, but hopefully we keep it pushing and make it more and more popular.
Yes, Ben, thank you so much.
Of course.
Applause, applause. Really appreciate getting that information. And it was an incredible presentation and really sharing about the three pathways. It makes me think about my next steps, and I hope it does for everyone else that took the time to be with us tonight. So now Q&A portion of the event. We've received some questions throughout the presentation. To our audience, feel free to continue to add questions and use the Q&A function, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. So I'm going to open up with one question and then we can go from there. So one of the questions is, what's a good first step to affording a home in this current market, and any other home buying advice?
Awesome. I think uh, the markets are always going to be the markets. Buying a home is never cheap. It's a powerful move. When it comes to kind of starting, it depends where you are. If you already own property, you're trying to buy more, then you talk to a lender and get pre-approved to kind of move forward with those things. If you're very first time buying, look into RI Housing. They have a first time buyer program, and they
Yeah.
incentivize people to buy homes, and they help you with the down payment. Those are kind of those two avenues, but it'll always start with the lender. You want to go talk to someone to get pre-approved. If you don't have somebody, email me. I know my contact information will be shared later. I'll connect you with a few lenders. Ultimately, when you're just like anything, whenever there's a problem, there's ownership land now. Whenever there's a problem, there's three things you could do, right? So there's either you got to talk to the right person to solve that problem. There's someone else who's been through it. You're not the first one. You're not a unicorn, right? So talk to someone who's either been through it, know the process of to know the next steps, or know the right tools. With that frame, you could dive into almost anything. But really talking to a lender is the first step to get pre-approved, because then when you're pre-approved, that's when you can start seeing the market calculations. Okay, a house costs 500,000. That sounds like, oh my God, what the hell? Okay, well, how much is that a month? And can I afford that or not? Right. Okay, if I'm renting, can I afford that or not? Okay, if I need a down payment, does the money only need to come from me? Do I have family members that can help me? Are there programs out there that can give down payments? When we start just kind of moving one step forward, then the opportunity starts to show. And the thing
Mhm.
about when people say the market is just a pulse in the moment. How is everything? And those who are not in the market are like, everything is burning. It's so crazy. But those who are in it, I'm like, oh wait, hold on. There's opportunity here. I got pre-approved for this. Wait, hold on. Let me go look at this. And it's just constantly being curious as you move forward. Because again, it's personal, it's individual. You are making that decision. No one else is.
Very good. Thank you. Another question is, did you have any difficulty with renters, or, a
Yeah,
lot of people that are interested in doing it have some fear around that, right?
yeah.
Like, what if I buy this and then I have problems with the folks that are renters? So just your thoughts about that.
Oh my God, I love it. Oh my God, it's a headache, right? And not to say that like the renter is the problem, right? Like sometimes also I am. I used to be biased, and I'm like, okay, if you were from a certain neighborhood, or I didn't even look at credit before, right? Just because um I never understood certain things, and I'm like, wait, now as an owner, pause, right? Like I let this slide once, and then once again, the responsibility, the ownership is on you, and again, that's what's scary. That's what creates the anxiety. Um, but you don't know everything, um, but through those hard times is where all the biggest lessons are. And so if there's a challenge, owning it and being like, hey, the outcome I get is mine. How do I maneuver this? And look at it from that frame. Who are the people I got to talk to help solve this? The tools or the processes. Um, Move forward with those things. I don't want to get into specific stories, but yeah, man, I think when it comes to ultimately being human, people are respectful and understanding. And if they're not, then we got lawyers, we got things we got to do. Sadly, and that's the reality too. Because I also always think that other people live like me, and that's not the reality. Everybody's different.
Hmm.
But you set up structure, you set up guidelines, you set up the interviews, you set up certain things that equal more success, the probability of higher success. and then you'll just win, you know.
Yeah. So I'm just going to put it out there. Any other questions that folks have in the chat before, we've only got a couple more minutes for Q&A. Is there any burning question out there that we need to ask Ben in this moment?
No, I see some real quick. So, what books do you recommend? So, there's The Millionaire Next Door. That'll humble everybody. Because people think like millionaires are out here driving Benzes. Like, no, no, they not. How do you go about finding established business to buy? So you can look into SBA loans. So just like there's FHA loans, the Federal Housing Authority, there's a small business authority. So the government will also incentivize to buy small businesses. So that's something, pull that thread. And just like there's lenders for homes, there's lenders for business buying. And once you get in contact with one lender, they'll know a little bit of everything and kind of what sources to look into. If you're looking at where to buy businesses, there's Biz Buy Sell. That's like the marketplace for just like Zillow, but for businesses. Um, and then there's also like private advisor firms that you can look into when buying businesses and things like that. But
Mhm.
great question. Um, how did you go about finding a trustworthy lawyer for real estate agent, an accountant, etc.? So trust is the most expensive thing, period. I think when the more money you make, the more challenging it is to find trusting people. Um, but the beauty of it is that you start getting a sense of it, right? So you can ask certain questions. If you ask a question, like for example, Michelle and I are having a Q&A, if I'm not answering Michelle correctly or not filling that curiosity, there's something off with me, right? And so when you ask a question, if someone doesn't hear you, that's points off right there. If they're not answering you clearly and pointing you to the right direction for you to take it and run, that's already a check, right? So you figure as you meet people, you now they work for you. So also switch that frame, right? So you are a client now. You're not just here to, oh, I'm here to be nice. Absolutely, you are a client now, and they need to respect that and treat you as such. And so now you can ask questions to get what you want. Just like you go to a restaurant, listen, I want a burger, and you bring me a fish. What are we doing? Bye. I'm not paying for this. And so you figure out that trust comes with those outcomes. And again, that's why being an owner now, ultimately, are you getting to the outcome you want or not? And if you're not, you're cutting it. So that's how you figure out if you can trust people. Are they getting you the outcomes you want? If you hire an accountant and they just want to have tea parties with you, that's not an account, right? So you figure out what's the outcome that you want. Um, I own a condo.
Last question, Ben, just because of time. Go. No, you can go. You can go one more.
Okay. I own a condo I would like to rent. Would using a service to select a renter be a good idea? Using a service to select a renter, that's up to you. Everybody's different. There's no perfect equation. So it's kind of figuring out what you feel more comfortable with. If you prefer a property management company to handle it, great. If you prefer to do it yourself, it's ultimately up to you. Good.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for all the thoughtful questions and engaging during tonight's Q&A. I know we couldn't get to all the questions, but if your question wasn't answered or if you have further questions, we'll be adding Ben's contact information in the chat so you can continue the conversation after the webinar. So we will have that in the chat momentarily. I think he already put it in. Um, so Ben, do you have any final advice that you would like to share with our guests tonight just to close?
Yeah, I think fear is the first thing we'll fear with ownership. But I think when we can disperse that fear and talk to others and have these conversations and kind of make more of these tables happen, it's the fear starts to shrink. Right. And I go like, oh, I can't execute because more people do this. Oh, and if I do have this that goes wrong, I know who to talk to. And that's the most liberating feeling when stepping into ownership. But it's something you step into consciously and not something that just happens. It's something
Right.
you decide like, yo, today I'm gonna move into this. So that's kind of my general advice.
Well, I really appreciate it. And I really appreciated the insightful presentation and thoughtful discussion. You got me thinking about a lot of things, which is the most important thing, right? Now it's time to execute. Thank you to the audience for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us tonight. And remember, hosted by the Alumni of Color Network, we hope to get some of the interest sheets in from you all. We need our alum to join us to do this wonderful work. We'll be adding links in the chat with more information about the Alumni of Color Network and other councils. And so look out for that. And this has been amazing. This is our first of many, I hope. And Ben, much appreciated. Really love this. All right, y'all have a great night. Take good care of yourselves. Thank you.